Welcome students at Biotech Easy, a platform where we discuss techniques, and today I will be discussing agarose gel electrophoresis. In previous videos I have already given the basics of gel electrophoresis, the difference between agarose gel electrophoresis and polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis, how this technique we are using and why it is used. So all these basics I have already discussed. So those who haven't watched it, watch it, and it will help you in the understanding. So I'll start from the principle here. The principle of agarose electrophoresis is the same, that the voltage that we apply, it makes a molecule to feel a force, and this force depends on the charge that the molecule is carrying and the electric voltage that we are applying. In case of DNA, since it is intrinsically charged, so the force will depend on the size of the DNA fragment, how much base pair the size is. The more bigger the DNA, the more force it will experience, and the electric field that we are applying. The velocity will depend on this force as well as the frictional coefficient, and as I have already discussed in my previous video, the frictional coefficient depend on the size of the molecule and the conformation of the molecule. Uh, so this is the DNA as you are seeing on my screen, and it carries the phosphate groups which provide it negative charge intrinsically, a uniform negative charge. That's why we don't have to charge the DNA. So the DNA gets separated according to its fragment size, or we can say the molecular weight. So in agarose gel electrophoresis, you have to weigh agarose, put it in a conical flask, and put some distilled water in it. Then you have to put it in a microwave for 2 minutes, but this 2 minutes speed we don't put it for a continuous time. We have to take it out at every 30 seconds, and we have to swirl it so that the agarose can dissolve completely and we can get a clear solution after the 2 minutes. So we have to boil it, and then we have to cool it down to 45 to 40 degrees Celsius, and then we have to add ETBr, ethidium bromide, in it. After pipetting out ethidium bromide, we have to pour it in a gel caster slowly and consistently, uh, in order to prevent the bubble formation. And if you see any bubble in it, then you can remove it with the help of a micropipette tip or using this plastic sticks. So if you find any bubble there, then only what you have to do, you have to gently corner it to the gel caster. So after we have to keep it undisturbed, and then we will get our gel. After this, you have to put the gel into the gel caster tray. Please don't put out the comb, because that is not a good idea. That will spoil your experiment. Then you have to fill it with the tank buffer, and after that you have to put out the comb. So note it in the mind. Then you have to load your samples into the wells, as you can see the blue dots there, and then apply the electric field, connect the wires and apply the electric field. Always remember that DNA migrates from cathode to anode. That's why while you have to put the electrodes at their correct position. Cathode, it denotes the negative terminal, and generally it is colored black, and the anode, it denotes a positive terminal and it is colored red. So you have to attach the electrodes correctly. After that, the molecules will experience a force and they will move out of the well, and then all you can see is not fragments and nothing. You will be only be seeing a blue line which is migrating. After that, you have to visualize it by using a gel dock, and the gel dock system consists of a machine like this with a computer attached to it. You have to open it, put your gel into it, then close it and select some tabs from the PC, and then you will be able to see your gel picture like this in a black and white format. So the DNA fragments will fluoresce white against the contrast black background. So what the requirements for agarose gel electrophoresis is, in reagents you require agarose, then 1x tris acetate EDTA buffer, or you may also use tris borate EDTA buffer. pH should be 8. Then 6s loading dye, ethidium bromide, ladder, Other things are the conical flask, distilled water, gel casting tray and comb, micropipette tips, paraffin tape and tissue. So before setting up your experiment, please make sure you are having all these things. So the mobility of DNA depends on its size, as I had discussed already, its conformation. This I had also discussed in my previous videos. Third thing is agarose gel concentration and type, amount of ETB are used, and the buffer we are using. So today I'll discuss in detail all the three things on which the mobility of DNA depends. First, I'll discuss the buffer preparation, tris acetate EDTA buffer pH 8, how you will prepare it, what it is. So, TA buffer consists of tris base, glacial acetic acid, and EDTA. EDTA is ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, and you have to set the pH at 8. So, generally in lab, we already have stock of 50x TAE. So, the lab they used to purchase it, and we have 50x TAE stock. From this you can make 1x TAE by using the formula, simple formula C1V1 equals to C2V2, where this C1 denotes the concentration, V denotes the volume, C1 denotes the concentration of your stock. Here it is 50 and you don't know how much volume you have to take. Suppose you are making TAE of 1 liter, 1x TAE 1 liter, so you will substitute C2V2 with 1 and 1000. So when you will solve it, you will get V1 equals to 20 ml. It means you have to take 20 ml from the stock and then you have to fill it with distilled water and make the volume up to 1 ml, sorry, 1 liter. So this is how your 1x TAE will get prepared, and you can store it in a separate bottle. So if your lab doesn't has 50x TAE stock, then you can make a 10x stock by weighing 48.5 gram trace, then adding to it 11.4 ml glacial acetic acid, 20 milliliter of 0.5 molar EDTA, and you can make up the volume to 1 liter. So you can make a 10x stock like this, and for this you need 0.5 molar EDTA. So this EDTA you have to prepare it, autoclave it, and then you need to store it at 4 degrees Celsius. How you will prepare it? Easy formula, EMV upon 1000. R is the required amount, E is the molarity of your solution, here it is 0.5. M is the molecular weight of the compound. You can easily find the molecular weight of the compound because every bottle in the lab, whatever reagent it is, if you look at its label, molecular weight they always used to indicate. So no need to take out the mobile and then see it on the overnet. You can see it from there, and the volume is the volume that you want to make. Like here I have written 30 ml. If I want to make 30 ml 0.5 molar EDTA, then V will be 30 ml. So put all the values in the formulas and you will get your answer, 5.58 gram. So this 5.58 gram you have to first dissolve it in 20 ml distilled water, and since EDTA it doesn't dissolve in water at normal temperature, so you have to add sodium hydroxide pellet into it until the solution become clear, and then you have to adjust the pH to 8 and make the final volume to 30 ml. This is how you can make 0.5 molar EDTA solution. Then after you have to syringe filter it and autoclave it, and then you can store it at 4 degrees Celsius and can use it whenever you want to. Now second buffer that you can use in your experiment is tris borate EDTA buffer pH 8. So here also you can make a 10x stock solution, and these are the constituent: tris base 108 gram, boric acid 55 gram, distilled water 900 ml, and 0.5 molar EDTA solution 40 ml. All these things you add it, and then you can get 1 liter 10x stock. From that you can make 1x TBE by using the same formula C1V1 C2V2 and put all the values. So it here you it came out 50 ml from 10x stock, and to it you have to add 450 ml distilled water. In this way you can make your 1x TBE whenever required from the stock. Now the question arises that whether to use tris HCl or tris base. In labs, you might have heard tris HCl, tris base, what to take. So it is a confusion in many students mind because they don't know the basic difference. The basic difference is that tris base is the pure form. Tris stands for hydroxymethyl aminomethane. So tris base is the actual pure form of tris, and whenever it is dissolved in a solution or water, it gives a pH of 10.4, a greater pH, and it needs HCl for adjusting its pH to 8, whereas tris HCl, it contains equivalent HCl, and it's already means you can say that its pH is already adjusted, and whenever it is dissolved, then it gives a pH of 7 to 9. So the steps which are necessary for adjusting the pH, it get reduced. If you want a pH more, then you can add NaOH in it and you can adjust the pH. Nowadays Trisma present pH means Trisma, and whatever pH you want to make, it is available in the market. You can purchase it. Like Trisma 8.2, it will yield a pH of 8.2 plus minus 0.5. So these things are also available in the market, and your lab can order it and can prepare the things very clear. Now what buffer you will make depends on what experiment or what you want to separate. So there's some difference in TAE, TBE. TAE has low buffering capacity, so that is not suitable if you are running the samples or you are doing electrophoresis again and again. You can't do it, it will get exhausted, so you need to change TAE after one run, while TBE has high buffering capacity, and if you have run one gel in TBE, then you can run another gel in it and then another gel in it again and again. So this because why? Because it has high buffering capacity. Now TAE has one another advantage, that migration of DNA is faster in it. Why? Because of its better conductivity, whereas in tris borate EDTA buffer, the buffering capacity is slow. TAE provide high resolution of DNA smaller than 2 kb. TBE provide high resolution for DNA fragments greater than 2 kb. Then if you want to isolate or you want to take your sample for further PCR like Sanger sequencing or PCR, then TAE is more suitable. Why? Because it does not inhibit the DNA polymerase enzyme, whereas the tris borate EDTA buffer, it inhibits certain enzymes which are there in PCR, like DNA polymerase, it inhibit because of the presence of this borate. So TBE is not suitable if you want to take the sample to PCR after running the gel electrophoresis. So for that, TAE's buffer is more suitable. So this is how you will decide whether to use TAE or TBE. Generally in labs, TAE is preferred whenever it is DNA. Now comes the 6x loading dye. The final concentration is 1x, and 1:5 ratio we use, means one part of the dye we mix it with 5 parts of the sample, and it is used as a tracking dye. As you have seen that you are not seeing any bands when we run the electrophoresis. What we are seeing, a blue color line which is migrating. So it generally has, this dye generally has glycerol or ficol and EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. So glycerol, ficol, this gives density to the sample and settle it to the bottom of the well. And there are 2 or 3 tracking dyes: bromophenol blue, xylene cyanol FF, and orange G. So these tracking dye help us to know that how much run it is completed. So all these 3 dyes have different mobilities in the gel. Xylene cyanol migrate very slowly, followed by bromophenol blue, and followed by orange G. So orange G will migrate ahead of the DNA samples, followed by bromophenol blue, and then lastly xylene cyanol. So if you are running a gel electrophoresis, you will see these 2 colored bands migrating. You will not be able to see any bands right now unless you put the gel into the gel documentation system. So while loading the samples into the well, you see a blue color. So this is how this 6s loading die help us to know, okay, our sample is being loaded properly into the wells. It has not splashed out, or it has not came out of the well. So everything is there in the well. Now comes ethidium bromide. It is a fluorescent dye. It is an intercalating agent, mutagenic and cancerous. So what happens? It intercalate between the bases present in the DNA, and it absorbs UV light, and then it gives fluorescence of orange color. And why it gives orange fluorescence, we'll discuss in the next slide. So this is how a gel image looks like when the ETBR absorbs UV light and then it fluoresces. From this graph you can see that this ETBR has maximum absorption as 210 nanometer and 285 nanometer. If you see the UV region, it is from 100 to 400 nanometer, and then it is classified into A, B and C. So A correspond to 315 to 400 nanometer, B correspond to 280 to 315 nanometer, and here ETBR absorbs UV maximum at 285 nanometer. So this comes in UVB region. So most of the gel document system, they have this UVB region 280 to 315 nanometer, so that the ETBR can absorb it, and then it gives fluorescence, the orange fluorescence that we are able to see. This emission is at 590 or 605 nanometer. So as you are saying that it is absorbing wavelength of it is absorbing low wavelength, and then it is emitting wavelength of high number. So this is what fluorescence is. Sorry. It is linked to the third carbon of the D-galactose. So if anyone asks about agarose, then it is a polysaccharide of agrobiose. Agrobiose is a disaccharide made up of D-galactose and 3,6 anhydrogalactopyranose, and the bonds involved in it are beta 1,4 glycosidic bond and alpha 1,3 glycosidic bond. In beta 1,4 glycosidic bond, D-galactose is linked to 3,6 anhydrogalactopyranose by 1,4 linkage, and in alpha 1,3 glycosidic bond, 3,6 anhydrogalactopyranose is linked to D-galactose by 1,3 glycosidic bond. Only keep this in mind and you will be able to answer the questions. Where it is extracted, so this agarose is generally extracted from red seaweed, Gracilaria cylindrica and Gelidium amansi. So Gracilaria cylindrica, it produces a low melting temperature agarose. Its gelling temperature range from 40 to 52 degrees Celsius, means at this degree Celsius the solution will start to form gel, and its melting temperature is 85 to 90 degrees Celsius, means it will dissolve at 85 to 90 degrees Celsius. Although for 2 minutes we have to boil it, and at every 30 seconds we have to take it out and swirl it, so that it will get dissolved completely. Likewise for Gelidium amansi, the agarose that we extract from it, it is called standard agarose, and its gelling temperature ranges from 34 to 38 degrees Celsius and melting temperature ranging from 90 to 95 degrees Celsius. Now as I have told you that the mobility of DNA also depends on what concentration of agarose we are using. So different percentage of agarose, with the use of different percentage of agarose, means how much gram of agarose we are using, the mobility of DNA will differ. So if we are using 0.5% agarose, then it will be good for the separation of 1000 base pair to 30,000 base pair DNA fragment. And as we increase the percentage of agarose, the linear DNA base pair size is also decreasing. As you can see, the upper limit, when we are using the 2% agarose gel, then it is able to separate DNA fragments of 50 to 2000 base pairs. So if we want to separate DNA of less base pair size, then we have to increase the percentage of agarose in the gel. So as the percentage of agarose is increasing, we will be able to separate DNA base pair of less size. This is all about agarose. I know I have missed the ladder thing and some questions, so that I'll discuss in my next video. So stay at Biotech Easy for more information. Okay, and wait for the next videos. Thank you very much. Be a learner and an explorer. Thank you.